What if I told you that one of the most prolific pieces of art of the 20th century was a shitpost? What if I also told you that it predates social media by about 100 years? And what if I also told you that it is still extremely relevant today? I swear to God, this is not a video about water sports. This is The Fountain, a 2006 American epic magical realism romantic drama film starring Hugh Jackman and Rachel Weisz. And it's not what we're here to talk about today. This is The Fountain. This is a piece created in 1917 by Marcel Duchamp and submitted to the inaugural exhibition of the Society of Independent Artists. Now, the Society had presented themselves as a democratic body of artists that would accept and exhibit any piece of art submitted by any member of the group. At the time, this was a very novel approach to art and art exhibition. Duchamp, a member of the board of the Society, wanted to test whether or not his fellow artists were really committed to that ideal. So he went to a hardware store, bought a urinal, rotated it 90 degrees exactly, and signed it R. Mutt, then submitted it under that pseudonym. And this kick-started a lot of debate within the Society revolving around the idea of whether or not this was art. Could you just rotate in a urinal and call it art? Well, the Society didn't actually reject Fountain, but they didn't show it either. When it came time for the exhibition, they just sort of hid it away and sat on the fence about it. Duchamp, seeing this, resigned in protest. In art history, Fountain and Duchamp are considered to be part of Dada, a cultural movement that emerged in the wake of the Great War, aka World War I. To these artists, rationalism and other bourgeois conventions like capitalism had brought the world to the brink of destruction, and those values should be rejected. You see, Dada was directly political, and you guessed it, it's loudly anti-capitalist. It pushed up against the idea that art has to be aesthetically pleasing and easy to understand and commercially appealing. To Dada, whether or not someone wants to pay for a piece of art doesn't define how legitimate that art is. What defines art isn't the sale price or the critical reception, it's whether or not the artist themselves considers the work to be art. Hence why Duchamp specifically picked out a urinal when making the fountain. Fountain is above all an attempt to undeify the artist. The artist isn't a great creator. Duchamp just went to a hardware store and bought a urinal specifically to make the point that anything can be art, and anyone can be an artist. In fact, art can even be something that you can piss on. You're probably wondering why a virtual YouTuber is talking to you about a 100-year-old urinal. Oh, the same trends that brought about Fountain are still present today, and I'm going to make the argument that some of them might even be more relevant than they were in 1917. But I really want to focus in on that tension between external and internal validation, and also a little bit on how someone can define success. That might seem outlandish, but you don't have to look very long before you start finding evidence. Take, for example, Doc's August 2021 blog post boldly asking the question of when creatives should listen to their fans. Also, by the way, if you haven't played Doc's game Adios, pause the video and go do that. I'll wait, I'll still be here when you get back. Anyway, so what's the answer to this question? Fucking never. Omitting reasonable requests for things like accessibility options, listening to fans is a losing game. People are always going to have personal preferences and expectations. And take, for example, maybe your game has a dog in it and someone comes in and says, you know what, I really just prefer cats. Or maybe you're streaming a game and someone comes into your chat and says, you know, that's fine, but like, I'd rather you played something else. Or, believe it or not, some people even come into my chat and they might say that my ears look dumb. And those people get the gulag. As a creative in this situation, it's a tough spot. Do you tell the person that the work's just not for them? Maybe get real up close, you really zoom in like this, and you tell them, hey buddy, it's not for you. The customer is always right, but do you want to start treating your audience like customers? We do live in the age of the rise and grind, where everything and anything can be monetized and anyone and everyone can be a potential customer. Social media has really blurred the line between an artist and their audience, making things more permeable than ever. You don't just have to tell your friends that you prefer a band's older work, you can just tell them directly in a comment. It's just that easy. You just use the internet. Full of access coupled with the just massive scale of people that a person can potentially reach via the internet is really unprecedented in human history. I mean, let's take a second and try to visualize this. Imagine this stadium full of people, and it's not a band or a performer up there, it's someone playing Fortnite. And that's happening every day over on Twitch, on YouTube, etc. It's just the scale of people that you can reach via the internet is really impressive when you try to sit down with it. And if that isn't making you feel just a little bit anxious, well, get ready, because we're about to dive into a philosophical nightmare. You ever hear about algorithms? You know, those things that are supposed to help guide us in the veritable ocean of content on the internet. Ideally, algorithms should be working in the background to look at our watch history and what people like us have watched and try to connect us with content that should be similar to our interests. So let's take a totally made up hypothetical that's not based on my life, and let's say you've maybe watched this all-time banger from Girls' Generations 10 times already this morning. The algorithm is probably going to kick in and say, hey, you seem to really like this. Here's some similar stuff that you might also want to watch. But in practice, it doesn't work out so cleanly, because it turns out that the companies that compute and manage and design these algorithms are not in the business of making you happy, they're in the business of making money. That's right, baby, we're only halfway through this video, and the problem is capitalism. Because that profit-seeking motive to keep you on the website longer so you'll watch more ads and generate more revenue is how we ended up with the philosophical nightmare of the YouTube radicalization engine. Because you know what's really, really good at keeping people on a website? Right-wing outrage content. What also sticks out to me is how centralized algorithms really are. You really only need one person, one engineer, plugging away on a laptop and changing a couple of values in a code in order to have a massive impact on the lives of millions of people. You know, if you think about this in historical context, it's kind of like fashion magazines almost, but way back when you needed a lot of people and a lot of money to steer that kind of public interest. And you don't really need it anymore. We have this machine god that exists to drive people to and from certain topics based on either what is going to be profitable or what is going to just keep them on the website longer, aka what is profitable. And the specifics of how these different algorithms work are typically hidden away. They're black boxes that have a huge influence on how people connect with content online. Something as simple as whether or not you put a link to your stream in a tweet can factor into how your content is promoted. So let's say you're going to do a stream on Twitch. So you go to tweet a link to your stream. Now, the thing is, and this is a little trick to it, you're not supposed to put the link to your stream in the tweet about your stream, because Twitter's algorithm might then downweight your link because it's taking people off the platform. Are you following me? Because I'm barely following this. So the meta is you make your tweet and then you reply to that tweet with the actual link. It makes a lot of sense, right? We live in hell. But wait, it's still going to get worse. Instagram can shift their algorithm and weigh video content more heavily than photos. So if you're a nature photographer or someone who uses still photos to promote your online store, now all of a sudden you have to make video content, I guess, if you want to get that headwind from the algorithm. Or, oh, here's a great one. Where speaking of, remember when Facebook fudged those numbers about video content? Facebook went ahead and they told creators and different platforms that video was the future, and they published these numbers about video viewership that were inflated from anywhere from 100 to 500%. The fallout from that oopsie caused the online news industry to collapse. And for creatives, this is a mini game that we all have to play. If you don't know the tips and tricks and how to navigate the algorithm, like how to not tweet a link to your stream if you want people to find your stream, well, you're never really going to find an audience to begin with, or the audience you find will be much smaller than it could have potentially been. So creators will pass notes, rumors, and their own theories about what the current tricks are to trying to catch a promotional headwind. Whenever I see stuff like this, it reminds me of sailors trying to predict the condition of the sea by the color of the sky at night. So where does this all lead? Well, I want you to meet Blue. Blue is by all accounts, much like myself, a very successful virtual YouTuber. But Blue, despite appearing like just one person, is actually the product of a team led by another very famous YouTuber. The guiding principle behind Blue really is to seek profit and take advantage of algorithms and all of that. You see, as much as Blue looks like one person, a lot of investment has been made into motion capture and particularly voice alteration software, meaning that the human element behind the character is largely replaceable. Anyone can be Blue, meaning that Blue can have any number of skills, appeal to any number of demographics, speak any number of languages, all to seek trends and maximize returns. And if you look through and see everything from their thumbnails to the games they play, it seems like everything on this channel really is designed with profit and algorithms and algorithmic discovery in mind, trying to fit into a mold that these machines have actually made. And I'm not trying to say that I'm a true artist for not being like this. I spend a distressing amount of my time making shitposts that are not funny to anyone under 30, so I'm not going to knock anyone's hustle. I'm trying to use this though to illustrate how algorithmically generated discovery can really shape the way that people make content. The anticipation of what the algorithm is looking for can create a mold that people can readily try to fill in order to reach the biggest audience possible. Let's bring it on home back to that urinal though. One of the fundamental tensions that motivated Duchamp to rotate that urinal and call it art was the friction between external validation, that is to say, whether or not other people think that you're doing something good, versus your internal validation and your own sense of being able to say that what you're doing is good. Duchamp, as the artist, believes that fountain is art. The Society of Independent Artists have to debate amongst themselves and arguably came to the conclusion that it was not. That tension underscores a core conflict that I think is really exacerbated in the age of algorithms, and that is, where do you get meaning from? And how do you define your success? If you ever start to wonder how you're doing or how you measure up to other people, there's a whole world of metrics, partnership programs, achievements, and more that you can look to. And sometimes I feel like that's kind of the default way of going about things. It takes extra effort to shift your attention away from them because, in fact, if you don't just opt out of it, whatever platform you're using is going to be more than happy to directly email you neat summary statistics on how you can be making your follower counts, subscriber counts, or more go up. And that accessibility makes me feel like the balance has kind of shifted to favoring those external forms of validation. But in reality, not everything always goes as planned. Maybe you make a joke, it doesn't land. Your new video doesn't do as well as you were hoping. Or you get through 20 minutes into your stream and you only now have realized that you have been muted the whole time. True story. You see, shit happens, and when it does, it feels super extra terror bad if you're dependent on other people for validation. I don't have a solution to where the correct balance is between external and internal validation. This conversation has been going on for basically as long as art has existed, and commodification and metrics and algorithms and everything have only made it more complicated. But I think I have one real takeaway here, and that's the importance of that internal sense of validity, that confidence. Duchamp had the confidence and the audacity to drop a urinal on the art world and say, you're wrong for thinking that this is not art. My opinion of this, my evaluation of this matters, and if I value it, then it is valuable. And there's some wisdom in that, something that I want to internalize myself. It's taken me a long time to get here, and I've lost a lot of mental energy into worrying about how other people value what I do, but I want to move back on that. And I want to focus and make sure that I'm taking care of myself and valuing what I am doing and finding value in my own work. So feel free to like, comment, subscribe, share, do all that stuff. But you know what? I'm going to keep doing things that I think are fun when I think it's fun to do them. So please look forward to more garbage. Hold it! Ah, nah, I'm not ending like that. Not in the year of our Lord Luigi Mario 2022. Please wait warmly. I've got some fun stuff that I'm excited to share.